You've spent weeks agonizing over the 9626 syllabus. You know the IT theory literally inside and out. But when results day finally drops, your marks are mysteriously capped at a B or a C. Why does this happen? Well, it's because knowing the technology itself is only half the battle. Knowing exactly how the Cambridge examiner wants you to write about that technology, that is the hidden metric that actually gets you the A. So let's dive straight into this explainer and crack the code on the high mark exam strategy, specifically looking at how to manipulate data processing questions to squeeze out every single available mark.
Let's look at a classic example. Direct data is data collected for the first time by the user. Now, you're probably thinking, yeah, that's factually correct, right? And yes, absolutely it is. But here's the kicker. Dropping this generic dictionary definition into a scenario-based question is going to cost you massive marks before you even realize what hit you. In the ruthless world of the Cambridge mark scheme, a standalone fact floating around without context, it's practically invisible. You are essentially offering a textbook definition when the examiner is desperately begging you to solve a real-world problem.
And that leads us straight into what I like to call the context trap. Generic rote memorization totally fails because students just regurgitate everything they know without anchoring it to the specific problem they've been handed. It's kind of like memorizing the names of every single tool in a massive toolbox, but having absolutely no clue how to actually build a cabinet with them. Ordinary revision? It just teaches you the tools. But sitting there in the exam hall, you're faced with a highly specific scenario. It might be a hospital, a complex payroll system, a multimedia workflow. And if you just start listing isolated facts, examiners call this a knowledge dump. It aggressively limits your grade, because sure, it proves you have a decent memory, but it definitely does not prove you have applied understanding.
It's incredibly easy for these theoretical foundations to just blur together if you aren't deliberately differentiating them. Take a look at this core contrast. Direct data is collected for a specific, immediate purpose. Think of handing out a brand new survey to patients sitting in a waiting room to ask about their visit that exact day. Indirect data, on the other hand, was collected for one purpose originally, but is being used for something entirely different right now, like taking that exact same waiting room survey data 3 years later to analyze seasonal flu trends. The underlying technology didn't change at all, right? What changed is the context of the data's journey.
And this is where the trap gets so much deeper. Students constantly hemorrhage marks by mixing up closely related concepts. They'll swap validation with verification, completely confuse online processing with real-time processing, or misidentify a passive monitoring system as an active control system. Or honestly, even worse, they'll name-drop a super sophisticated technique like encryption, but entirely fail to explain the actual mechanism of how it secures the data in that one specific scenario. Listen, it is never enough to just drop the buzzword. You have to lift the hood and prove to the examiner that you know exactly how the engine works.
Now, in just a moment, I'm going to reveal the exact hidden examiner clue that can take a failing, bottom-tier answer and completely transform it into a top-band response. It is literally a signal embedded in the paper that tells you exactly how deep your answer needs to go. But before we can decode that, you need the foundational framework that makes this hidden clue completely obvious. Because without a solid mental structure, let's be honest, you're just throwing darts in the dark, guessing at what the examiner actually wants to read. So here is the secret weapon. It's a 4-prompt memory structure, and you need to use this for literally every single piece of theory you revise from now on. Number 1, what is it? Number 2, how does it work? Number 3, where is it used? And crucial number 4, why is it better or worse in this very specific situation? Try this right now. If you can answer these 4 prompts aloud for any given syllabus topic, boom, that topic is exam ready. This specific structure forces you to stop hiding behind simple definitions and pushes you straight into the realm of evaluation. It ensures you aren't just blindly reciting facts like a robot, but actually analyzing how the technology is applied in the real world. This exact structural mindset paves the golden road to those top bands when you combine it with the PLJ framework for writing your actual answers. That's point, evidence, explanation, link, and judgment. First, you make your point by identifying the core concept. Then, you provide your evidence, which is your technical detail. Next is your explanation of how the sequential process actually works, step by step. Then, and this is the absolute deal breaker, you link it straight back to the context provided in the question. And finally, wrap it up by offering a judgment on its overall effectiveness. Guys, this is the ultimate blueprint for an extended response. Examiners absolutely love it because it basically forces you to check every single box on their rigid marking criteria.
Let's actually see how this builds in a high-pressure exam context.
Look at the stark difference between these two approaches. On the left, we've got this flawed, super vague wording. Indirect data is faster to get. I mean, sure, it's not totally wrong, but it earns maybe one pity mark. Now look at the right side. This is a top-band, payroll-anchored masterclass. In the payroll system, using indirect timesheet data is faster, reducing administrative overhead. See what happened there? The right side leverages the specific scenario, the payroll system and the timesheets, and then explicitly states the real-world consequence, which is reducing administrative overhead. That right there, that is applied knowledge in its purest form.
To consistently get yourself to that level, your revision strategy requires exactly 3 swift passes. First, fixing and tightening your definitions. Second, rehearsing those worked explanations out loud. And finally, actively adapting them to wildly mixed contexts. Adaptability really is your ultimate secret weapon here. All right, it's time to put you firmly in the examiner's seat. We're going to run a quick interactive challenge. I'm about to show you a completely genuine style of student answer. Now, at first glance, it looks incredibly impressive, but it actually completely bombs in the mark scheme. I want you to pause, read it carefully, and see if you can predict exactly where the student went terribly wrong before I break it down for you.
Okay, here's the answer. The hospital monitoring system uses indirect data because it is a real-time process that validates patient heart rates. Read that one more time. It sounds super technical and advanced, doesn't it? But honestly, it is a complete and utter disaster. Which specific concepts is this student fatally confusing here? Look closely at the terms indirect data, real-time processing, and validation. Think back to that 4-prompt structure we just went through. Have a guess?
Let's break down the examiner's correction and see if you caught it. This student completely mismatched their explanation to the hospital scenario by just mashing together unrelated technical buzzwords. First off, a hospital monitoring system relies on sensors, right? And sensors collect direct data instantly from the source. It is by no means indirect. Second huge mistake, they use the word validates. Sensors measure physical properties like a pulse or a change in temperature. They do not validate data against a set of programmed rules. They literally just record the raw analog input. So while this student sounded incredibly smart on paper, they actually demonstrated zero functional understanding of how the technology works in that specific context. To guarantee this never ever happens to you on exam day, you need to ruthlessly run through a practical checklist before you even think about moving on to the next question. Question 1. Did I identify the exact task being asked? Question 2. Did I explain the sequential process steps rather than just lazy name-dropping the technology? And question 3. Did I aggressively anchor my entire explanation to the specific scenario they provided? If you can't enthusiastically tick all 3 of those boxes, you haven't finished your answer. You've likely just left a trail of underdeveloped bullet points that the examiner cannot give top marks for. But wait, here is the real diagnostic cliffhanger. Let's say you've done absolutely everything right. You faithfully use the PLJ framework, your scenario anchor is genuinely perfect, your technical terminology is utterly flawless, but somehow your mark is still capped at a B. You still end up losing half the available marks. Why on earth would that happen? Well, you can write the perfect answer, but if you completely miss the hidden cause baked into the wording of the question itself, you are essentially answering a question the examiner didn't actually ask. That hidden mark killer, it's fundamentally misunderstanding the command words. The Cambridge syllabus uses very specific verbs. They might ask you to define, to describe, to analyze, or to evaluate. Listen carefully. If you merely describe a process, when the examiner explicitly told you to evaluate it, they will literally stop reading your answer halfway through. You could sit there and write an absolute masterpiece on direct and indirect data sources, but if the command word was analyze and you fail to break down the complex relationships between those data types, your brilliant technical knowledge is completely worthless to them. Seriously, if you don't instantly know the precise mark scheme difference between explain and analyze, all that studying goes right out the window. So, ask yourself right now, will your next exam answer be a masterpiece of applied knowledge or just another invisible, totally ignored knowledge dump? We need to fix this right away. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ace the Exams, at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations, and click the next explainer on your screen right now to totally decode those crucial command words. Trust me, you cannot afford to miss this. See you over there.